Let me introduce you guys to my pet. This is Foxy. He's kind of cute, huh? And you know what? He's very easy to take care of. You don't have to feed him, you don't have to take him out. You know why? Because he is a fake. And that is what we're talking about today. We're talking about fakes, we're talking about hoaxes. And this is the era of fake. But hoaxes have been around and fakes have been around for a long time. Let me take you back for a moment to 1869. A couple of well diggers had been hired to dig a well on a farm. And they start digging and they hit what they think is a boulder. And they keep digging and digging, and eventually they unearth a giant figure. Looks like stone, a figure of a man. The farmer immediately capitalizes on this. He charges 50 cents to anyone who wants to view this figure of a petrified man, as they call them. This was in Cardiff, New York, right about in the middle of the New York State, just south of Syracuse. And this became the era of the Cardiff Giant. People from around the country came to view him. Well, what was going on here? This wasn't any petrified man. In fact, the statue was only about a year old, and it had been commissioned by George Hull. Interesting character. Hull had purchased a large block of gypsum and hired a stonecutter in Chicago to make it into the image of a large man. And then this was buried on a farm, his cousin's farm, and they hoped to capitalize on this in a very interesting way. Here's what was going on. Hull had a meeting with a pastor, and they had gotten into a conversation, and the pastor was telling him about biblical giants like Goliath and how in the era of the Bible giants actually existed. Hull was an atheist, he didn't believe this, and he wanted to poke fun at the biblical lyricists, so he hatched this scheme. So they had the giant buried, and they waited about a year to make sure that no one had seen the burial, and then they hired the well diggers and unearthed the giant figure, and people from around the country came to view this miracle. And his idea was to kind of suggest vaguely that this was really a petrified giant, because what he wanted to do was to show how gullible people are and how easily they can be taken in, because of course he didn't believe in the biblical story of giants. Well, the whole scheme lasted a couple of months. It became a very big news story. In fact, P.T. Barnum wanted to buy the giant. He wasn't for sale. And Barnum then decided to make a copy for himself that he exhibited. He made a fake of a fake and made money with that as well. Well, the stonecutter, it turned out, couldn't keep his mouth shut, so within a couple of months, the hoax was revealed. And Hull was okay with that because by this time he had his fun. He had poked some fun at the biblical lyricists, and what he had hoped was that they would eventually end up with egg on their face. Egg. Fake, of course. But you know what? Today, you can go and see the Cardiff Giant. He's in Cooperstown, New York, at the Farmers Museum. So now there's another reason to go to Cooperstown beside the fact that the Baseball Hall of Fame is there. You can go and view this colossus that caused such a huge stir in 1869. And of course, it was a hoax.